I was born an alcoholic. I feel like I was born an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. His dad was an alcoholic, uh, pretty bad. I can remember my first drink of alcohol. I was 5 years old, and some kind of party. It was like my grandmother's birthday, and or Christmas or something like that, and everybody was drinking glasses of champagne, and they gave me a glass of champagne to have, and I proceeded to gulp the champagne down, and I got that warm feeling, and I remember being silly and laughing and being goofy, and the other thing I remember was trying to get more champagne, and it was the first time that I had heard uh, the term alcoholic, and uh, and I was told that I was definitely an alcoholic, just like my dad. And my mom and him had separated because of his alcoholism. And he wasn't really around in my life at the time. And but I had remembered hearing that alcoholic thing as like a label that was put on me, at that time. And I remember trying to get more drinks from everybody, and like they cut me off. They were like, he's definitely an alcoholic, no more for him. And I remember hitting everybody up for sips of their champagne, and so that was my first experience with alcohol, and becoming familiar with the term. I was able to be reunited with my dad shortly after that. He had gotten sober, and he was doing AA. And so I had been around AA pretty much most of my life since I was about that age, 5 years old. And, he would take me to meetings with him, and I would, if people be introducing themselves as newcomers, and I would raise my hand, I'm an alcoholic, and my name's John, and everybody would laugh and clap their hands and stuff, and crack up. But, just thinking back now, I realize I probably was a newcomer introducing myself then, but it wasn't. I didn't really start drinking uh, until I was about 12 or 13. Somewhere in seventh or eighth grade, I was with my friends, and most of my childhood was pretty normal. What did go around AA a lot, so I was familiar with the whole thing. I knew from an early age that I would had this family, thing, the alcoholism, and that that I was potentially an alcoholic. So I knew to steer clear of it, but like that didn't really change the fact for me. Like when it came to it, so like when I was growing up, I always felt like I don't know, like a little different than everybody. For one thing, felt like I didn't quite fit in. Felt uncomfortable in my own skin, and yeah, I would have to say, looking back now, I see that like I had friends and stuff like that that, as I grew up, had pretty normal childhood, and but I did have that uncomfortable feeling inside. Like I always thought that I was from somewhere else, and that like I wasn't like everybody else. Like I was some kind of alien or something like that. It was just this weird thing. But like I gravitated towards a group of friends, and at some point, uh, my friends were all drinking, and I started to drink with them, and it became like this bonding thing between us, and it opened up something for me to where like I felt more comfortable, felt like I was a part of something, more than I had ever felt before, and and I felt like I'd fit in finally, and like I had finally arrived. And so, like ever since then, I had chased that feeling that I had found, and so yeah, let's see. So like that, when I realized, and I kind of looking back at the whole thing. So I always never really felt like I fit in, never really felt like I was a part of anything. And I realized like how this is a disease of loneliness. Like eventually, like that's where it took me. Like I finally found my calling and found my people and felt like I fit in and felt like I was comfortable. But eventually, it's like it took everything like that away from me. And like in the end, I had found myself alone and isolated. And the only thing that I really wanted, or needed was the alcohol. And, it brought me right back, way deeper into loneliness and isolation than I ever was before. And, it's like I thought that it's what was going to bring me out of it. And, let's see. So uh, 32 years old to get sober this time. I'd had a few times around before, and so I relapsed a few times, and let's see. Yeah, I mean, I chased that into oblivion for a long time, and it had pretty much taken everything from me. It became the only thing that I really wanted out of life was to chase that feeling and get back to that place. And it was like slowly, I just sort of began to depend on it more, more than it was actually giving me what I wanted in the first place. But it still chased after it, like as if that was going to be what I wanted. So yeah, I mean, eventually, eventually it finally took, but it took a few times going in and out. I had learned that well, at least I had learned that it was going to kill me. Um, like I'd gotten to some pretty dark places. I had not much left to lose in life, and I don't know. That was pretty much it. Like I had lost everything. Was living on the streets in the end, and I didn't really care. It was like that wasn't really what I cared about. What I cared about was getting loaded, and I felt like life couldn't get any worse, but I was happy where I was. Like that, like the lower and lower my standards went, every time I would just like move right in and get comfortable living that way and get used to it. And I mean, like I had like become desperate to a point where like I wanted to get sober, and I had a good taste of AA from getting like 8 months or 9 months or 6 months or different times around. And it was like the last 3 years that I was using it and drinking. I could not, like I would go to a meeting, realize like this is what I needed. I need to live like these people, and have a good life. And I couldn't. Like, the window was just not going to open for me for 3 years, and I struggled knowing what I wanted, knowing that I wanted to get sober. I know I'm kind of jumping around a bit, so uh, I'll go back a little bit. So I remember my first time said, I really became willing. And, you know, I went into a meeting. I had a court paper to be signed, to impress the judge with. And, I knew I had to go to meetings. And I went to this meeting and I thought, this, this seems like it could be a pretty good deal to come hang out here with these people. And they all seem pretty happy, and I could show up here a couple times a week and get some signatures and drink a cup of coffee. And, I'll get enough signatures to impress the judge to get him off my back so that I could go back to doing what I wanted to do. And at some point, something clicked. And at some point there, I became willing. Suddenly, I heard something somebody said that was like myself, and I could relate to them. And I realized that like there was no way out for me. No way, no matter what I tried. And I heard a lot of people saying things that were like worse cases than me, and they were doing okay. And I knew that this thing worked. Like they had found a way out, and that this thing worked. And so I realized that maybe if I stick around with this thing, that it could work for me too. And so I was kind of going to that same meeting a couple times, and the coffee maker position was up for grabs. And I don't even know if it was me, but somehow my hand shot up, and I took that coffee maker commitment because it was like a newcomer commitment, and it was a little uncomfortable, but going forward, like for the first time, it's like I took a responsibility and was like able to actually be accountable for something, and like that changed something for me. It like gave me a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging, and like next thing I knew, that was my home group, and like everybody remembered my name every time I went there, and I remembered other people's names, and it's like I got comfortable with this group of people, and it became my people. And so, like, I had a home group all of a sudden, and I was in service, and it was keeping me sober. And I knew it would keep me sober for the 6 months that I had that commitment for. And like, the lights started to turn on, and next thing I knew, I took a sponsor, and I wish I could say that I stayed sober, but like something happened at step 3 where like I drifted out and I, went back. It was like, and I believe it's somewhere in that first step, that hyphen between powerlessness and unmanageability. And it's like, I have to remember that hyphen there between those two, that those two parts of that first step is like what ties both of them together as like one thing. Because like, if I'm not, recognizing my unmanageability anymore, and like my life seems to be totally manageable because in the truth, like without consequences that like that you know I wanted was get rid of the. I mean, that's what brought me to my knees in the first place, and so I figured I could go back to what I was doing without the consequences because I didn't really have them anymore. And, I didn't realize how quick those consequences would come. I would last a week out there before I would lock back up with, you know, it was like it was just doing push-ups the whole time and, getting stronger, so and more difficult for me to act and to get super again. The more and more I realize. So, um, see if I could get to a good point. It's like I had a good taste of what AA was, and realized what a good life it would give me, and that it was the answer and the solution to the way I'd been living, and it had a lot more to it than just to get me sober, to keep me sober. It gave me the opportunity to live life, to a more full and purposeful way. But like, it wasn't that easy to like get sober, just like I thought I could at first. Like I could go out and come back. And it wasn't, just because it was there and available didn't make it easy for me. I mean, like for my dad, who had been around the program, he went in and out until it killed him. Like he drank himself to death. I saw that happen. Shoot, I was 3 years sober, and that was this time. And I came home from work and found him, and it was pretty heavy. And I was supposed to go to SWACYPAA in Portland the next day, and I found him, and I was so proud to tell him that I was going up to Portland to go to this big sober thing, and I knew he was struggling and suffering and stuff, and so yeah, it's a deadly disease. I knew, and that just reaffirmed it. And so, like, I've been through a lot of stuff in sobriety, but like, I haven't had you know, the urge or whatever to drink and use. I've been able to get through a lot of things, and I've been blessed in that way. Anyway, I know I jump around a lot, but so yeah, I did end up going to that conference, and I called my friends and said, I don't. I don't think you guys want me to go. I don't want to be a bummer or a downer, on the trip and stuff. And they said, well, we think going with us would probably be the best thing for you. And so the next day I was on the plane, and when we walked in the door, like I sat down at the first meeting there, and the girl speaking up at the podium, it was saying that her best friend had just took her own life the day before. And I was like, man, my dad had just died the day before. And, for somebody who knew the program inside and out, it's like, it doesn't mean that we have a guarantee to stay sober. It's like not everybody's going to make it. And program works if you work it. And so I try to stay in the middle. Uh, I try to stay plugged in and on the beam. And, because I know how dangerous a game is. It's not a game. It's life and death. And yeah, it looks like I'm starting to run out of time. Yeah, so I'm grateful for the program. It's been the best. I don't know if my camera's off or if I just got the funny face on there. Oh shit. Well, thanks for letting me speak. I hope I said something maybe somebody could relate to, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be of service. And yeah, I guess that's it.